Hola, hola, hello there. I'm here tonight to talk about different topics. Um, One of them to start with, there's lots of people on YouTube that I'm a big fan of. Uh, Part of them have been totally entertaining. Um, some of them have been really funny. And I know Fanatic, Teddy Swans, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes on this thing, but anyway, let's try this out. What I'm here to do is say hello to everybody, or hello to everybody, and I'm going to get used to looking in the camera. And part of this is about a story that I had, actually had happened. I was in my mid 40s, 50s at the time, and I was uh, with a fellow who had decided to put his wife in the hospital. She was very ill, and we had kids, and I had kids, and I was by then well divorced. And we had decided to eventually get a camera and to sail it down to Venezuela, where I got a bug bite, and one thing led to the other. I was in an awful lot of pain and all that, and didn't end up in the hospital in Venezuela, but I did end up back in the hospital in Canada, where I got antibiotic shots and IV drip and rehydrated and back into Canada and back into health eventually. That's enough of the scar. So after that, part of the idea about doing the catamaran trip was the fact that I had wanted to um, have my friend go out into the world and try to see different parts of the world and learn about what's going on in other countries. So that when we got home, we could tell people about what's going on in those countries and try and give some compassion for other countries. And so see people where they are. The problem was that the people that I was with were basically alcoholics and drug addicts, and they, although they could relate to the domestic problems that were happening, I couldn't relate to what it like to be a drug addict to some extent. Even though I had smoked most of my life, and my parents were alcoholics, and they both died of cancer. My mother had 4 brain tumors and lung cancer, and my dad was also an alcoholic. He eventually died of bowel cancer. And the crazy of that is, on top of that whole fact, my beautiful daughter Sarah, I have 3 beautiful daughters, and Sarah had decided to go up into the airport and up in this small town in Blooming, and had decided to go and have um, a hot tub or shower type of situation. And the propane had a leak, and she had died in the shower. And Sarah had decided to be the light of the life. Essentially, what happened was for me was that I was scared to even share myself on Halloween when I was a kid growing up, and had refused to go to Halloween, and had refused to do all these fun things that other kids were doing, simply because I was teased for most of my life and decided to hide out in the basement, which was really stupid. And where Sarah made the decision to be vicarious, to enjoy herself, to um, to be out there and to try and coexist with people and not hide away like I did, like her mother did. And the whole thing is that Sarah was dressed up in Barbie, like Barbie, like Barbie. Woo! Barbie! And try and be like this very vicarious type of person. And but she also decided to go for a boat ride with a broken rib and decided to enjoy the party rather than try and go home and prepare for a rest or and try and get some rest somehow. But that's the kind of person she was. And I miss her. Uh, there's this whole thing. Teddy sings about this whole thing about wanting to take, I think the words are to take the skin off their bones because of an addiction. And although my daughter was not addicted, she certainly had social things that are going on. And these are highly personal thesis, but it's important because the reason why it's important is the fact that where is the difference between being vicarious and wanting to enjoy your life and not being crushed by it? I think Teddy has actually found his niche because he's able to breathe in and breathe out and sing about those those feelings, which are really important. And that's a good reason why I decided to write because a lot of the time I couldn't share my feelings with what was going on at the same time do share my feelings. And why am I wearing purple hair? Well, why to be strange? I'm a grandma with purple hair. Who asked? Yeah, that's just gonna be alright. I also draw fluffy stuff, which is fine. But part of the other reason is that I wanted to share that story because Sarah was against me going on those trips. And uh, I had decided to try and go on those trips to try and be bit, well, be vicarious, be outgoing, which was what vicarious means, and to try and learn about other countries. Try and learn about what was going on in other places in the world. And Venezuela is a beautiful country. It's got views like you won't believe. It's uh, Bernadette has been through the Amazon, and part of Venezuela is part of also in the Amazon, and it looks exactly like that. It had rivers, and basically what we had done was we left Trinidad, and we went through this river system through the ocean, and you could see where the river and ocean parted, or not parted. It was more like, oh, there's a word for it. God, what's the word for it? Anyway, it's where the river and the ocean met in Venezuela. And part of what we saw was, I'll show you a picture that I took. And basically, it had this picture of like this. I don't know if you can see it, but it has this picture. Sorry. It had this picture of this oil thing, and it looked like it was going to Babel. And which is the only way to describe it. It was pulling out all this fracking or water into the ocean, into the river. And it was a horrific sight for me to see because I'd never seen it before. And it was like, oh my God, what's going on? And so they claimed about how they did that and why they did it was to produce oil in the river and the ocean. And that's part of the problem with Venezuela is that they have this oil digging they've been doing for a lot of years, and that's part of the reason why people are leaving Venezuela is because there's this other part of the country that has this oil, and whereas you're correct, they don't have the oil, so trying to extract that and all that, it's a lot. And people were being flung off this boat and all that kind of stuff. And I could have gotten myself in worse trouble, but eventually I ended up home, which is good. And it was a good thing to do to go and see, go about the world and see what other places are about. I've watched a few of the people who are on catamarans, you know, like it through my feeds, you'll see that I've been seeing the vagabonds who are fabulous couple and young couple with young kids, young boys, and they go off and they see parts of the world, and it's beautiful the way they do it. And they, sure, one child was nearly attacked by a monkey, but they had joy, they had fun, and that was the part that I wanted out of it. And I loved it, but at the same time, I didn't always appreciate the fact that as much as I was being giving and out there and being vicarious and being, um, oh God, I'm not good at that. But anyway, one part about being vicarious is about sharing who you are. And that's a good thing. And what Sarah did was show herself. And what my other girls do is share themselves. My youngest daughter, sorry, my youngest daughter, she made this group called this group Mr. Camps, and she made a t-shirt for her band. Okay? She also made this one for her band. And my youngest grandson has a copy of that shirt, and he wears it. He's only a year and a half old, and which is fabulous. We had it on earlier. It's fabulous, and you know, part of what I do is draw. Okay, this was something I did for Sarah after she died, and it is her heart. This is a representation of her heart, and she was a woman of heart. I would show my heart to these alcoholics and drug addicts, and they would crucify me, put me down. It's like, oh well, I'll just climb on top of that and write better. Oh my God, I can do this. I can create art. Yay! Um, or I can write something out. Or like one time, I came up with this dream in my head, and it was about a woman who was in a pool, and she was like her head was like from here, you know, and she was in this pool of water, and she fell, and she was trying to make a statement for herself, and this guy walking into the room, and he was conducting music, and the orchestra music was getting louder and louder into this room, and this woman decided to, instead of being head above shoulders, she decided to get out of the pool and become this best ballerina she ever was. And this was a dream I had. And I decided to expand on it, and she came out of the pool and had danced a number like she'd never danced before. Our mother's a ballerina. We have Barbara Granger was in Lancaster. And she decided to, this is a dream night. So when she um, decided to climb out of the pool and become stronger and more alive than she'd ever been before, and she was caught by these vines against the wall. And the wall, the walls was like this, and the vines were holding her tight. And I don't know how that happened, but it did. So finally, she decided, okay, well, I'm taking off these vines, and I'm going to make myself a full person. And despite the fact that somebody did that to her, in my head, was really rough. But she became her own person, despite all the whatever people said about her dancing. Well, despite the fact that, or your ankles aren't quite right, or your this wasn't right. Despite all that, she decided to dance anyway. And because of the fact, when my mother went into retirement back in 1960, about the year I was born, and she came out of retirement in 1976, and she went on to be in this show called Brigadina, and she danced like she'd never danced before, and she loved it. And people gave their applause, and I was handing out programs, and my parents were both on stage. I mean, what kid could be honored by seeing both their parents on stage? And it sounded like it was a pretty good deal at the time. And then one day, I was about 12, 13, 12 to 13. And I was at the show. And at the show, they had this gentleman who was having a birthday, and they pulled out a rubber thing. It was about that long, and they decided to fling it try and fling it to different people. And people were like, ha ha ha, laughing, ha ha. And so finally I decided, okay, well, I've had enough. I'm 13, and decided to run into a girl's bathroom. I was 13. I mean, what 13-year-old wouldn't have acted like that? And so I dry my eyes, dry my ears, maybe some of my tears went into my ears. And so I decided to walk out and act bravely. And I walked out, and everybody said, "Oh, good for you, Cheryl. You did it. You stood up." Well, tonight I'm standing up because I believe that the world is not falling apart, it's falling together. I believe that it's time to recognize other countries for where they are, which is one of the things that Trudeau represents. Okay, I'm going into politics now, and you have to meet people where they are, and to 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 do that point is to understand where other countries are at. That doesn't mean that you have to be them. It does mean that we have to have compassion for where they are. Now, understandably, the United States has had uh, a terrible time trying to negotiate with all kinds of countries lately. And it's all really good to say, yeah, let's create another war and let's create this problem for somebody else. But the fact is that unless we start arriving at some peace, then how is the world going to come around, come together? And the fact is, what's going on? All right, well then, I don't know what's going on here. Am I there? Hello?